Chris, you were just saying to me that you joined the army well before the Vietnam War.
Yes.
And just summarise for me, if you can, your service history.
Well, firstly I went straight to Malaya after training with the 2nd Battalion, which we did border operations on the Thai-Malay border. I think I did about 6 operations with that battalion. Then we moved to Thailand, and we were guarding the Yubon Air Base while the Australian Air Force were there. Cambodian border with the 173rd Airborne American. We went up with them to there. Then I came home and went with 3 Battalion for the Indonesian confrontation. And after serving with them, came home.
Now, the Indonesian confrontation, just for the timeline, that was in the early 60s?
Yes, yes.
Right.
So
Vietnam is just starting to bubble on the start, yeah.
Then I came home for discharge to Keswick, and I changed my mind and re-engaged, and I went to Vietnam with the advance party, and I served over there for 14 months, just under 14 months. That's away from home. Came back, I was put in charge of funerals from people who were killed in Vietnam, which was a very trying job. And I did about 14 months of that. Then I went back overseas for another 2 years, including Singapore, Malaya, Thailand again. I worked with the embassies for a short while as an investigator, and then I came home for discharge. But just before I did, I was posted back to Malaya. I was in charge of the riot squad in '69, compiling of Australian, British troops and Malaysian police. We managed to save quite a lot of lives in a kampong or a village, and I was in charge, so they gave me a commendation for bravery from the British who were in charge of the operations. And then I came home and got out. Later on I joined the reserve for a short while. I wasn't happy with that. Then I did, as a cadet officer, training recruits in South Australia. And it was at that stage I saved a couple of ladies from a burning house in Brighton in South Australia and got the Bravery Medal of Australia. Then I carried on. I've been 20 odd years with cadets, scouts, and helping veterans in trouble. That's one of the reasons I built this in the country, so they could come, take it easy and see that what they did was not what people realised. If you put a uniform on for your country, you have to be proud of your uniform. And if we go out as peacekeepers, our government sends us, so we do the best we can.
One of the things that, well, you can hardly not notice it, is that you've accumulated an enormous amount of personal memorabilia, mainly from servicemen and women from the district, or your peninsula, but also from beyond. And people were donating this stuff to you. And I guess the other thing that struck me with some surprise was that a lot of this stuff you found as it was being discarded.
Yes, it was a period in our history that a lot of people wanted to forget wars. The family members had passed away, and the best way to get rid of it is drop it down the dump. So I was a very, very regular visitor to the dump, and some of the stuff I found has been really fantastic. And you say it's from the district, well, it is, most of it, but my will states it is not to leave the district, and it will stay on the York Peninsula as a gift from me to the people.
You've shown me letters and postcards and honour rolls, all kinds of records and memorabilia from RSLs that have been forced to close due to, well, lack of membership, for want of a better description. And you've been diligently preserving this stuff. I mean, I can't count it. Dave, your caretaker, is standing next to me. He's probably got a better idea of exactly how many pieces of memorabilia there are. It must be in the hundreds of thousands. Newspaper headlines, weapons, letters, helmets, uniforms, service records. I congratulate you, sir, on the fact that you've taken it upon yourself to preserve this stuff and have it here for so many of us to see and enjoy, and I thank you for that. And you were starting to tell me some of the stories. I mean, right next to me is, and I'll show you a photograph later, 4 beautiful Japanese dolls. Now, these are about, 6, 8 inches or 10 or 12 inches in the old measurement. How did they come into your possession, and where did they come from?
Well, they actually came from a nurse that was captured by the Japanese in Singapore. She was a group of nurses, and they tried to make an escape, and they were captured. Some of them were killed, but the rest were put back into prison, and the Japanese made Japanese dolls to send back to their families. But they had to use the clothing they wore, and they had to cut their own hair off to make the hair on the models, on the dolls. This lady had them for a while, and she had heard about me, and she brought them in one day, not long ago actually. So I put them next to those darts in the other case alongside, which were made by Australian prisoners of war in Changi prison, and they smuggled them out after they were freed, and the last one alive sent them to me from Kadena. His family, well, he did, is to say he was the last of the group that made those darts, and the story is with the letters that are enclosed in the cases.
And this, Chris, is just one of dozens, scores, dare I say hundreds of stories enclosed in this fabulous museum. I've got, I'm looking at a Japanese war flag that obviously captured, and with all kinds of Japanese notation, which a lady kindly told you to put it up the other way, which is great. But a lot of stuff from World War One, a lot of stuff from World War Two, and from your own experience in Southeast Asia and Vietnam. Is there another story that comes to mind? I mean, whether or not he's a relative of mine, I'm yet to determine, but Errol Noack's personal memorabilia here.
Well, Errol Noack's personal items came when I was on a committee that built a home for Vietnam veterans coming back who weren't being looked after, and I built a home in Mitchell Park in South Australia. I was a builder when I got out of the army, and we put it for the veterans to go to the hospital there. We bought them a little bus, and we called it the Errol Noack House. Errol Noack was the first South Australian national serviceman killed in the Vietnam War.
Well, he's the first national serviceman, full stop, wasn't he?
Yes.
Killed in the, yeah.
And
on Kangaroo Island he was, I believe. Is that correct?
No, he actually was from Port Lincoln, to my knowledge, but his father died on Kangaroo Island. Walter, his name was, and I knew Walter, and we built this house, and we used to all get together. I used to do some fairly illegal things, like having crab racing in the backyard for money, so we could raise money.
Shame on you. Goodness me, we better erase that. I mean, wouldn't want that to come back and haunt you.
But we kept it going, and then it was handed over to the RSL, and because the Vietnam War had come to an end, they decided that it was no longer useful, so they got rid of it. And I always thought that it could have been used for Timor and Afghan veterans and from the Gaza Strip and things like that. But everybody's got their ideas, and so it was got rid of. And Errol Noack's father was just about to die, and he bequeathed all of Errol Noack's personal things, like the flag with his name on, which was carried through Sydney on the Welcome Home Parade, his photo album, his flag we designed, and everything. It's in the museum here, and that will stay here too, because his father died on Kangaroo Island, and I don't know, I believe that I feel like a curator here, looking after
Oh, you most certainly are. Most certainly are, of the highest order. You would have to spend days here examining every artefact and its story behind it.
Well, honour boards here that I found that were just stored in old sheds and things like that. I've got to my knowledge, I took it out of a rubbish bin. It's a cricket bat. It's an army issued cricket bat from World War II, and it's signed by the members of the Rats of Tobruk cricket team. And I found it in a rubbish bin when a garage sale was on, and they didn't have anybody wanted to buy it because it's so dirty. But I cleaned it all up, and I found the names of the cricket team from Tobruk.
It pains me to think of the history and the heritage that's been lost through carelessness or just ignorance. And you've done an enormous service to Australian history by preserving so much of this stuff. World War One, World War Two, and all these other confrontations that people have forgotten about.
Being in 3 different campaigns in my time, a lot of people think this is kind of a warmonger's hideaway, but it's not. It's to show people that this is what happens when people go silly and start wars.
Yeah.
It gives them an idea personally to look at. It's no use hiding it. We've got to remember that so it doesn't happen again. Simple as that.
And when you say personal, so many of the things around here are intensely personal, like these letters home from the front, photographs and upon photographs of servicemen, not just, as you say, not just from the district. And these are directly related to the feelings and family memories that you've preserved here. And on behalf of everybody and every family who's ever had a member serve, I thank you and encourage you to come and see Chris's fabulous collection here in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the York Peninsula, which was not too hard to get to. The Bublacowie, is that correct?
Bublacowie, yeah.
Bublacowie.
It means sweet water, I believe, in Aboriginal. It was the area school for the school children on the farms, and I restored that, and that will be part of the museum too. We have about 15 rooms full of this stuff.
Yes.
And all of it has been restored, repacked, deactivated, and it's been claimed, to me, I believe it's the most important part of the history. I do get schools coming here. Prince Alfred College has been coming for 14 years. I don't charge anybody.
Tomorrow's the 11th of November, and you're going to have your own ceremony here, I believe.
Oh yes, yeah, we always have a ceremony here. I know it's died out in the district. I believe it was only us in the newspaper advertising, which is bad because, again, I'm not pushing war, but it should be remembered.
And not repeated.
Not repeated, exactly, yes.
Yeah. Now, I mean, we've talked about the dolls and we've talked about various other things. Is there, if I were to press you, could you tell me of any one particular collection or assortment or story that always seems to come to mind? You've told me several.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got the full history of the Loveday internment camp. I've got the president's desk and all that, and quite a lot of documentation on that. It's sad that unfortunately Loveday or Barmera area, the camp was destroyed after the encampment in World War II, and there's nothing but the guard commander came to live down here, and when he died I actually was lucky enough to be there and bought all his memorabilia. So I've got all the records of Loveday and prison camp, and it's another reason to keep that history, because most of the Italians that were in the camp were Australian people. There's only a few that supported Mussolini, and they were interned there. The others used to go out and they formed one of the biggest vegetable growing blocks of land in the riverland, and that was to supply troops in New Guinea and people in Australia. So they were actually working for Australia.
What a great story that was. I had a relative, of course, in one of those as well. I'm not sure he was quite as diligent as the Italians. But we're just about to wrap up now, Chris, and again I pass on my thanks and my deep respect to you, and thank you for looking after this place and for showing me around today. And I encourage everybody of any persuasion to come and see this just incomparable collection. Thank you again, Chris Soar.
Thank you. Okay.